fine.
So, with me today, I have Rich Batchelor, one of the most phenomenal people that I know, and a very, very dear friend. Rich enriches life, for to say it in just one sentence. I'll let him introduce what the plethora of things that are done by whether you talk about change, whether you talk about curiosity, and so on and so forth, and coaching and mentoring. A very giving person indeed. I'm very thankful that you're spending time with us. Go on, tell us more about yourself.
Absolutely, no problem at all. A plethora, I like that phrase. Some people have referred to it as being some sort of intricate puzzle because of all the different pieces that I have fitting together with everything I do. But I'm one of those people that hates the idea of being bored. So yes, my passion is the change space, and most people that know me from working in change space and talking about that and doing a lot of stuff in that sort of change space type activity. But I think as well, what's interesting for me is that that's taken me to expand into lots of other areas, and it means that I teach, I speak a lot, I do educational activities. I get involved with education institutions in advisory capacities. I've worked with a number of non-profits. I've done a lot of activities that just really are about helping individuals and organizations to reach their potential. Because for me, my passion, and you know this from the conversations we've had, is all about recognizing the potential of humanity and humans. And that's really what drives me into everything I do. So I've been kind of doing this for a few years. I'm not going to give away quite how many years, otherwise
we don't want to talk about
working out ages and things like that. So let's not go into that conversation.
But I'm so glad that you brought about in what you just said, you spoke to humanity and human beings. This is a time where humanity is much needed, much required, with what's happening with COVID-19 and the world literally in turmoil. What has been your experience? How are you feeling in your personal space, one, and how is it impacting your profession?
Absolutely. So how many days have we got for this conversation now? So, but yeah, I think for me, professionally, it had a big impact to begin with, because I do so much work that's in-person activities, educational workshops, facilitation activities, and even down to like attending conferences to speak and share my knowledge with people. So that was an initial impact. But it's kind of interesting for me, I think, because we talk about all these activities going online into a virtual world, that sort of stuff that's happening with people being expected to do that. And I've kind of been doing a lot of stuff in a virtual space for a number of years. So that wasn't so much of a shock to me, but it did also make me realize that there are people who I'm having to engage with now who are not so familiar with this. For instance, I teach at one of the colleges, and yesterday I had to have a virtual class with 37 students using technology they've never used before. And wow. Just going through that side of things and getting them to switch on their cameras so I could see them at the other side was like, oh, well, I'm shy, I'm quiet, it's okay, you've got to nurture that sort of side of things. So it's interesting in that space. But I think on a personal point of view, perhaps because I'm experienced in the change space, and as I'll share with you probably as we go through the conversation, some of the work I've done over the last couple of years has been much more about this disruptive and planned change space. I'm a little bit more resilient and prepared for whatever might be. Yes, I get worried, I get concerned, you don't know the unknown, and you go through that fear factor element that everybody goes through. But I think it's been okay. I won't say it's been great, but it's been okay. at the moment. But you have got to do things like, managing a household where more than one of you are working at home at the time, and then navigating around that space with other people without getting a little bit stir crazy or cabin fever. It's like,
trust me, it's not easy. You and I both know it. It's not easy.
But there's also the situation of like, how many things have been removed from your day-to-day activity? I can't go for a swim, I can't go to the gym, I can't go and pop out and get a coffee at the coffee shop. All of these things are affecting what's happening in what I used to do and what's been comfortable for me, and now I'm having to kind of change things around. It's interesting.
I can imagine. And I see a lot of people going through these experiences. We even at work have had transition, and our work is mostly again similar to yours, where we are out and about in the community, meeting with members, doing trainings and consulting, one-on-one sometimes, or in groups. But that has changed, and we are also discovering the joys of having online meetings, sometimes even challenges that technology poses. But it's one of those phases where people are trying to navigate as things happen and evolve on the go and learn, which sometimes is fun, but at the same time, for people who are not used to that change and we're not really up for it, sometimes it can be a bit much. Do you feel that people around you or people that you work with are having a hard time?
Absolutely. And it's interesting how you rephrase that, because that's one of the challenges. We don't have people around us working with each other. Everything becomes a bit more of an event when you want to connect with somebody. So people are having more of a challenge, because I feel that they have to make an event every time they want to connect with somebody. But then when they are making that event, then they want to really cram everything into that one moment. So it's like, I've got you for 20 minutes. I need to do, and then you're kind of like going, oh my word.
I agree.
And I totally get it. And I appreciate why it's happening with people. But I think it's a difficult piece for people to understand, that they can be normal using this without needing to actually reshape overly the way that they engage with people and do things. There are different things that you can get restrictions and get, some things make it more accessible as well for people. You don't have to be in a physical location to do these things and meet with people. But a lot of people I'm engaging with, I think, are finding it wearing. And I think, and even for myself, I've talked about this with a few people, there seems to be this constant buzzing in the head, because your head is constantly churning. What's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to be the next thing? How is this going to affect me? Where am I going to be this time next month? You're posing lots and lots of questions to yourself that there's no easy answers for. And this is a real challenge. Yeah.
That's just so true. You made a very valid point. And quote unquote, they're being called the uncertain times. Like, I've read this word uncertain and uncertainty. I've lost count, honestly, of how many times I've read it. It's pretty much a part of each and every conversation as to, I'm not sure, I'm uncertain, I'm confused, I don't know. My worry is, have you found people who are like at the verge of kind of, not feeling hopeful? Have you had any conversations? Because, and I know you have people that you mentor and coach, and you also are talking to young people who are in your class. Have you found that happening at all? And what is your advice? Most importantly, what advice or what are you telling them?
Yeah, I don't think I've found anybody who's lost hope, shall we say, or lost that sort of will to keep going. But I do see it getting thinner and thinner with people. And you can see that sort of almost a bit like a a shortness of patience with the situation, with the frustration start to kick in. And there are a few people actually thinking about it that are struggling to actually manage and cope with what's going on, because it's taken them so radically out of where they were before with what they were doing. And they're also concerned about their loved ones and the health and the distance between people. And some of the students that I have connections with are international students, so they have parents and grandparents in other countries around the world that they can't see until all of this is over, and yet they were supposed to be going to see them in 2 weeks' time, and now they can't.
True.
And
Can I stop you for a second?
Sure.
I believe my sons are in the background somewhere. I'm not sure if you can hear them, but I certainly can. That's joys of being at home as well.
How many people can you fit in a household? Yes.
Sorry about that. I think they got the message even from my conversation with you. Okay. All right.
It was a mom look. No, don't worry about it. It's all natural. It's all natural.
So you were speaking to international students.
Yeah, a lot of international students, and even people that I mentor that are professionals, where they've got, family in other countries that they were expecting to be connecting with in person. And they are feeling a little bit disjointed and disconnected and worried about how things are affecting them, because, some of these people don't necessarily have technology access that we have. And that causes a struggle for them to actually have that communication piece with them. So I think there are a few people that are maybe a little bit more worried than they want to appear to be, should we say. I think there's a little bit more underlying worrisome at the moment that's going on with a lot of people that is maybe not so obvious. But I think it's going to be interesting over the next couple of weeks, because I think some of these things might come out from this. You mentioned the word uncertain. And I mentioned at the beginning about some of the work I've been doing in this sort of unplanned change, disruptive change space, and the phrase we often refer to is the VUCA phrase, and lots of people don't like whatever. It's an acronym, VUCA, for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity.
Thank you. I learned something new today.
There we go. So, I could go through the history of it and everything, but it's easy to just, look it up online and see what the VUCA acronym, where its origins are. But it's really about describing the unpredictability of space and the situation that we're in at the moment, and how we can't control VUCA-based change, but we can control our own reactions to it. So we need to let go of trying to control that disruption and start looking at how we react and respond to that stuff.
Wonderful.
And these are the things, as you say about like tips and help with things, with people. For me, and I've actually been doing a few short webinars that have been helping people on some of this stuff, just sharing my insights with people, having some great conversations. Because it's about, you mentioned curiosity. It's having the capacity to be curious about what's happening to you and those around you, not being afraid to ask questions. We're in a situation right now where you need to ask, what does this mean to me? What does this mean to the people around me? What does this mean to who I can have around me? Well, all of these things. So not being afraid of asking questions, having an agility element with you that actually allows you to flex and bend, and not expecting everything to be perfect. It's okay to let go of being perfection driven. Because
it's interesting that you bring that up. I mean, in the last few days, I've had so many conversations around perfection. In fact, even I can't recall exactly, but either it was on CBC radio or one of the podcasts that I heard about how people want to be perfect, and in their need to be perfect, they're just so scared to even say something, just from the fear of, I might say something that's not so perfect, or I might appear not so perfect. So that sometimes it's okay, like calm down, we are human beings. all.
Well, I often say the phrase, it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah,
It's
it's
perfectly
totally cool.
acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where I talk about like in personal agility that leads me into also personal resilience, because you need to be building that level of personal resilience to help you cope with these situations. And that also means finding the time to switch off and disconnect from all the noise that's going on, because there's a heck of an amount of noise and it's putting a lot of weight on people who are hearing this noise, and you need to be able to step out of that and step back from it. And I was talking with one group, I think it was yesterday, about this, and it comes down to recognizing how you lead yourself and the way you lead yourself and the way you present everything. And it means looking after yourself mentally and physically, which is the resilience element. Being prepared to find out what's happening around you, which is the curiosity element. And then being satisfied with doing the best that you can given what you have, and not trying to overwork the brain cells just to try and get perfection.
That's just so, that's a masterpiece of an advice, because you cannot control surroundings or others. All you can do is what you can do with yourself and your own mind. But to that point, and you mentioned that earlier, people who are going through, let's say, transition or change, whether it's because they're professionals who are looking for work, or they're new to the country, or these students who are now so uncertain about their graduation and all of that, when people are so charged with, I don't even know how am I gonna survive, how do they get over it and still be able to carry on and focus on the positive, or prepare for a change that is certainly coming, like it has always come about? What can they do? What would be the one tip that you can give them to stay motivated?
So it's actually going to be a challenge to the words you used there, because my biggest tip for people who are struggling with any sort of change is to not try and get over it. You don't get over change. What happens is that change morphs into a part of your existence. We are who we are because of all the changes that we've gone through in our life and our existence. When you fight against it, you're actually doing that. You're doing yourself more damage. Change is here to stay. We can't get rid of it. You know, I always make the joke, death, taxes, and change. You can't get away from any of those three things. But, you know, when we talk about change, we have to recognize that if a change comes, it's going to be uncomfortable and you're going to go through an emotional turmoil. And actually, I was talking with somebody else about this the other day. There's the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's grief curve, which is a grief curve which talks about the way people deal with death in response to sort of losing somebody. But it's not just losing somebody, it's losing something, because people perceive change as being the loss of something. And that model talks about the way you go through this kind of like cycle of change. And it starts off by saying things like, you know, you have that shock and anger and almost confusion where you're questioning and bargaining with yourself about what this means. And maybe you even might deny its existence before you can actually move through to accept it. And we have to recognize that in ourselves when we're struggling to deal with these changes. It's okay to have these challenging feelings, these discomforting, uncomfortable, maybe making me feel uneasy feelings about what does this mean, and not beat yourself up about having those feelings. To recognize that's being perfectly normal and human. To take it back to our conversation piece at the start about humanity, being human is about expressing feelings, and having those feelings about change is totally natural.
That's so wonderful. And I'm glad I phrased it the way I did, because, you know, there's only after you accept after you acknowledge that you can get onto that tidal wave, the curve, to get back to where you need to be, so that your low ebb is over and you're back on that journey of experiencing and exploring the change and getting, from point A to point B.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's a really important thing that you mentioned about where you need to be. Because so many times we get caught up in what we'd like, what would be nice to have. But, there's, Maslow's hierarchy of needs talks about what humanity needs in that sort of pyramidal cycle, the triangle piece. You can look it up if you want to with people. But when it comes down to it, we have to fulfill our needs first and foremost before we can go to our likes and our wouldn't it be nice if we did have, possibly could be, maybe-ish type things. It's focusing on that need stuff. And at times of challenge and struggle like we're going through at the moment, focusing on that core needs piece gives you something that's achievable rather than giving you something that is just, aspirational. We all like to have aspirations.
Yes.
But sometimes we have to be
realistically managing those aspirations into bite-sized, chewable, doable action items in daily life to carry forward.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure you've, in terms of experiences, you have so many. And again, I'm going to take you back to humanity. Has there been an act or someone who did something extraordinary, especially connected to what's happening right now around us, that stood out to you, or you've read a piece or somebody that you saw that you'd like to share?
I'll actually start off by just highlighting, before mentioning anybody specific on that front, the number of people I've seen coming out and saying things like, okay, this is a new existence. I want to help. I have a skill set that might help people. I have some knowledge, or I just want to be there for people. And I've seen it, interestingly, on things like LinkedIn, where I've seen so many people in my networks posting, I have this opportunity, or I do things like this. And, there's been a few people that I've seen that have been curating information and gathering stuff of like online resources so people can continue their learning, or opportunities to actually shout out and do things like that. But somebody who is a friend, colleague, somebody that I've had a connection with for many, many years, is somebody called Linda Hoops, who works in the resilience space. And she's got fantastic books out there on resilience and prosilience. But she literally offered her services and said, make a donation to help some area fighting COVID, and you can have some of my time to look at your own resilience and have a coaching session with me to do this. And this is somebody who's a multi-published author with lots of time spent, with lots of books sold, regularly on the speaking circuit. And she just basically said, I kind of know what it means to be struggling with things and how important your resiliency is at a time like this. Let me help you. And I don't want to make money from it. I just want to help further. And that real pay it forward, give it back thing is really, really resonated with it. And I call out that just because I thought it's more recently. But I've seen other people offering sort of services and things, free educational times, free coaching times. It's really shown some strong humanity come to the fore, where people can help and support each other, even down to people who've done things around, going out and just getting groceries for a neighbor who can't get things and stuff like that.
Whatever a person can do, like, small acts to big acts to spending time with people. Tell me something. If there was a magic wand and you could ask one wish off of that magic wand, and this has to be personally for you, not for people, not for humanity, for you yourself, what would be that one wish?
That's really difficult because it's not something that I ever think about. And you know me well enough. It's like I don't think about what I want for myself. I often think about what's beneficial for other people. And I don't know if there's one thing that comes to mind from a magic wand for myself. And I am going to twist it round because it is going to come to something that's benefiting me and other people.
Okay.
And my passion is to change space. And I love the fact that I work in a space that is all about helping and enabling and supporting people to navigate change in whatever way it was.
Mm-hmm.
So my wand wish would be for anybody who has responsibility in the workplace for other people to recognize the value of the person, not the resource, and to focus on the person and recognize that when that person is asked to change, they need support mechanisms. And you can't just say, suck it up. Because if I hear that again, I'm going to slap somebody, I think.
Oh my goodness, no, please. No,
and I'm not a violent person.
I know. No, I feel you. I hear you, Rich. We could all be a little more mindful. We could all be a little more compassionate and empathetic towards people experiencing a change.
Yeah,
it's a process. It's not overnight. It doesn't happen drastically. It takes time. It takes energy, and sometimes it takes way more emotional and mental space from a person to experiencing that change to be able to be in a space to be able to flow with it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I hear you. I totally hear you.
Not recognizing that two people are going to be the same. It's
True.
Recognizing that everybody's an individual.
It's an individual. It's unique.
Yeah.
That's so wonderful. Thank you so much for those lovely interactions. I've enjoyed talking to you as always. I always love talking to you. What would be your last point or message for people who will be engaging with this audio visual content?
Okay, so I'm going to leave people with a thought.
Okay.
And I want people to make a friend, and that friend's name is Carl.
Okay.
C-A-R-L.
Okay.
And this is somebody who I created recently to support them through the disruptive change. Because Carl is an acronym for being curious, agile, resilient, and leading yourself.
Wonderful. Oh my God, I love that. I just love Carl. I've already made friends with it. You must provide us a link where people can look this up or learn from it. I'm just so thankful. Once again, thank you for your time. I really, really appreciate all the points that you shared, and hope we can continue to talk again.
Absolutely, a pleasure.
Please make sure to like and subscribe and ring the notification bell to keep updated with all our videos. Thank you.